Hey everybody, just wanted to share a quick update on some of the AI agent things that I've been working on. One of the things in particular that I've been helping out with is building a accounting agent, I'll call it, but someone basically that helps ClinicNote with invoicing and sales receipts. Had a lot of double entry between uh, QuickBooks and Salesforce, so we wanted to eliminate some of that. Now there's softwares out there that can do it, but they cost quite a bit. So kind of took the challenge to see if we could build something with an AI agent to kind of to do this job a lot cheaper than going out there and purchasing one of these other SaaS solutions that could do the same job. So wanted to walk you through how I did that and see what your thoughts are. So just a really simple diagram here of the system. We've got our ClinicNote invoicing and sales receipt agent. This the task that they'll be doing, as you'll see as we walk through. And we gave them a couple tools that they can work with. So they can get customer information from QuickBooks, they can create invoices in QuickBooks, and they can create sales receipts in QuickBooks. This was specific to the use cases that we need. After going through this, would be pretty simple, it seems, to build lots of different applications between Salesforce or QuickBooks and vice versa to move information, make decisions, reporting, other things like that. So we'll probably be trying to investigate that later and expand the abilities of this agent. So without further ado, let's jump in and see where we're at. So what I used to build this was Relevance AI and Make.com. Both of these are no code platforms, so pretty easy for anyone to jump in and learn themselves. I'm not going to go through kind of a how to video or anything like that. There's lots of those out there. Maybe at some point I'll break some of these down into more bite-sized nuggets, but I'm just going to try to give a high-level overview for right now. So right now I'm in Relevance AI, and this is the ClinicNote invoicing and sales receipt agent. So when setting this up, we kind of come in here, we give the agent a description saying basically what they can do, so then knows what types of tasks they're going to be they're going to be given. So create invoices and sales receipts in QuickBooks, pretty simple, straightforward for the objectives that we're trying to accomplish. As we come over here to the core instructions, this is really where we deep dive into things. We'll I'm going to avoid some of the nitty gritty details on prompt engineering, but just try to follow some standard formatting procedures there to make sure that we're instructing our agents appropriately. So giving them a role. So this is our expert accountant who helps ClinicNote with invoicing, sales receipts, and monthly reoccurring revenue tracking over time. They have two main objectives here, and that's to create invoices in QuickBooks from Salesforce orders and to create sales receipts in QuickBooks from Salesforce orders. Again, that's just what we've built so far. I think there's a lot of opportunity to expand this in the future, and we'll be looking into that as we need it. But we're coming down here, some general instructions. Again, we'll avoid kind of the details on why we phrase some of this stuff the way we do. Kind of goes into the prompt engineering 101 that, again, maybe I'll make that a video at some point in time. So if we look at our SOP, we've got pretty simple SOP here. There's 4 steps. We've got get all the information about the customer that we need to make the sales receipts or the invoices. We need to be able to create those invoices, then create the sales report, the sales receipts. And then lastly, of course, we want to communicate everything back so that we can basically audit what's happening. Accounting procedures, we always want to make sure that there's somebody on the other end that's verifying these details, at least right now, until we are really confident that the agent never messes up, never makes a mistake, because it's really important that our books are clean. We've given this agent a couple tools, and we'll dissect those one by one in just a few minutes here, but we're going to say their tools are create QuickBooks invoice, get QuickBooks customer information, and create QuickBooks sales receipts with just an easy explanation next to those. Some of the variables that we're using throughout so that our agent knows what they're supposed to do with the different types of information. I kind of think of an agent as a brand new employee to your company, right? You don't they have some level of common sense. They know how to problem solve a little bit, but they might not know the specifics of your company and exactly where they should go get information and where they should put it. So basic instructions around that allow them to basically get better and better and hopefully be able to make good decisions over time. And then I just provided it with an example down below with all of the different steps and what I would like an output to look like. So as we feed it more and more information, they obviously would get more and more sales receipts and invoices created. And then again, we end with some general notes. Over here on the side, we can see the tools that I've given it. And with that, we will go ahead and jump into some of those tools specifically. So to get to our tools, we're going to come over here and we're going to click on our tools. And the first tool that we use is Get QuickBooks Customer Information. So this is a pretty simple tool in Relevance AI. And actually, let's back up for just a second. So we're going to tell our agent to do something for us so it can work in the background. So we're going to grab a Salesforce order quick. Got one saved over here. So let's say create an invoice and sales receipts for this order. And we're going to let this agent go to work while we do this. So he's going to go out. Obviously, I've given him the Salesforce order. You can see he's already starting to use that tool. He knows right away that's what he needs to do. So while he works, we'll go back over here and jump into our explanation of our tools. So what our agent just used was the Get QuickBooks Customer Information. The order ID obviously came from my prompt. I needed to tell it what I wanted him to work with. So pass that here. And then, fortunately, Relevance AI has a native integration with Salesforce. So I was able just to use a SOQL query right here. And I dumped that in here to get the main piece of information that I need. And that is the QuickBooks account name. And this is essentially a key variable that is shared in our systems between QuickBooks and Salesforce, and will let me go get the ID of that particular customer and be able to do a whole lot more information with it and pass information along later. We use a simple LLM step over here to eliminate anything else that might have been returned, just to make sure it's nice and clean. And then we send that through this API step. As you can see down here, I'm not going to click on it because it's got the overall, it's got our webhook in it. So I just don't want to expose that right now. But you can see that we've got some general context that is coming out of this API step. And actually, I think we can show that maybe in make.com. So this is the Get Customer Info. So if I come over here to make.com, we can find Get QuickBooks Info. So this is a very simple procedure, right? We're passing that webhook in. We're coming into QuickBooks. They have a module built in already. And we're saying, hey, grab me all of the information that I need for that particular customer that we passed it. Very simple. So that's going to send it back to make.com. And we're going to apply an LLM step here that reformats everything so that we can use it in future steps. And our agent now knows everything that it needs to know about our particular customer. So after it's done with this, the next step, we do not want to. So the next step is to create an invoice. So now we've got our order, we've got all of our information about the customer that we're going to apply that to from Salesforce to QuickBooks, and we're going to create an invoice. So we'll walk through this particular step here. We've got create a QuickBooks invoice. We have our order ID, which we gave the agent in a prompt. Now the agent also knows the QuickBooks customer ID and the QuickBooks customer email because they just retrieved all of that information from the previous step that we went through. We're now taking another step in here and finding some additional information about our order in Salesforce. We want to go in and we get all the products, the items, the quantities, everything that's going to be on this invoice, and we're going to pull all of that out so that we can pass it on to QuickBooks and create a formalized invoice from there. We're going to use an LLM step with, again, some basic prompt engineering overall, but this is going to create our format that we need with all of the information. So you can see in here, we've got a breakdown of what we end up wanting that to look like. And we're going to end up with a system like this. As we scroll down here, we hit this API step. So now this API step here is actually the create invoice procedure in make.com. All of these for this particular agent, the API steps are heading towards make.com. So we'll jump back over to make.com and we're going to go look and see what that looks like. So if we go into our create invoice step right here, you can see this one's got a few more things, but here's our webhook that would have been in that API module. And we're doing a couple things. We are, first of all, setting a variable which is pulling out the customer name, which we passed, or I'm sorry, the customer ID, which we passed. We are doing a line item, which would have been the array of products that we were passing through our webhook. And then, and you can see all of this if we click in here, you can see all of these came through the webhooks. We are breaking apart that variable line items, this big array that came in here, so that we can aggregate it back together. Kind of seems counterintuitive that you have to break it apart and then bring it back together. But this is just so that we can use only the specific information that we want to create a particular invoice in the future. So next step here is a piece where we needed to find the invoice number that we wanted to create. Now, this was more just me being particular about it. I like all of our invoice numbers to increment up one by one by one by one. You don't have to do it like that. They just have to be unique. There's lots of different ways to get unique numbers there. But all I'm doing, very simple, I'm connecting to QuickBooks here, and I'm doing a query inside make.com to QuickBooks where it's getting the maximum document number, which is the invoice number. That's what QuickBooks calls it in their database. So we're pulling the maximum there, see max results 1. And then we are adding 1 to that. That's what this little process does. It basically is just taking that and adding 1 to it. Very simple. So now we have our new invoice number, and we can pass into QuickBooks. They have, again, or make.com has a QuickBooks create an invoice piece. So I can pass my array here, which had all of the aggregated pieces for the lines that we need, the quantities, the units, the item IDs, everything that we need there. We've got our billing email, which we got from our Get QuickBooks information in a prior step that our AI agent passed through. We've got our next up invoice number, so it knows what to label it as. And that might be it for this one. Yep, that's it. So then when this is all done, it creates a QuickBooks invoice. So now let's jump back. That's the end of this step. It'll end up being done here, and it's going to have a result of the invoice that was created. So then the last step in our process is going to be create QuickBooks sales receipts. So the QuickBooks sales receipts is a very similar process. We've got, again, our order ID. We've got our QuickBooks customer ID and our QuickBooks email. Both of these came through that tool that we gave the agent in the step 1 that we talked about. Then we are coming down here for another step, which is get the sales receipt number. So this is very similar to what I just showed you in the other module here, where we're getting the max invoice number, but we're just doing it for sales receipts instead. And the reason that this one is split up differently, this is a very simple module. All we're doing is basically we're passing that exact same query in here, and this document number came right here from our webhook. But the reason that we split this one up, as opposed to doing it in line, which you'll see a little bit later with the larger task, is because I was running into problems where we're using a for each loop, which I'll show you in just a minute here. Basically, that for each loop was triggering all at the same time and creating, it wasn't doing a lookup fast enough in QuickBooks database. So I was getting the same invoice number for multiple sales receipts, which QuickBooks obviously needs it to be unique. So that was causing problems with my make.com flow. So pulling it out and sending it as a separate step allowed me to do what I need to do to make as many sales receipts as I need for a particular order. So now we're coming down again. We've got another step here of Salesforce SOQL query. And all we're doing here is we're getting all of our dates. So what we're doing with these sales receipts is we're essentially trying to create sales receipts to track our MRR. So this is getting all the appropriate dates in the formatting that we need for that. The next step, or I'm sorry, this is getting the dates up here. And then we're using an LLM step right after that to get rid of any of the MRRs that would equal 0. Obviously, we don't care about monthly recurring revenue if there is none. So we don't want to create a sales receipt for an invoice for a particular month that wouldn't have any value to it. So we eliminate some of those and we do some general formatting so that we get exactly what we need here. You see MRR for month 1, the amount, and then the date. And this is just an example so that our agent or our tool knows exactly what we're trying to produce. Then we're going to come down here and we're going to do, again, another API step which is determining if our customer is a new or a renewing customer. I'm not going to go into the details of this one for the sake of time, but this is all ClinicNote logic. It doesn't really pertain. Your business can do whatever it needs. It's essentially how we decide if a customer is new or renewing on a sales receipt. So it's a very niche business case, so I'm not going to dive into the details just for the sake of time here. So the next thing we see here is, I see we have an error, so we'll have to take a peek at that. We've got an LLM step that it says create sales receipts or create sales receipts JSON-like data. So this, let's go ahead and open this up and see where our error is. You are using sales receipts number. Oh, I bet I have that typed wrong. Let's go in here and see if we can find it. QuickBooks sales receipts right here. So we need this guy to be in Relevance AI. If you just do the curly brackets, 2 of them, you can use a variable. But we need this to be our QuickBooks sales receipt number right there. So we've got our LLM step, which we're essentially taking all of the information that we've gathered so far about this, and we're going to be creating these individual buckets of items here for our sales receipts. So this is going to be one sales receipt. This is going to be another one. And we have 3 of them listed in the example, but obviously depending on how many months the invoice is for, it could be as many as you need to be able to create it. So what's going to happen here is this is going to take all of the information from what we've gathered. We're going to create this new format here, and we're going to bring that into a convert to JSON component. And the reason we do that is because we output something that looks like JSON. If you're not familiar, this is a JSON format, but this is actually a text. It's not a real JSON file. So we, again, are using this convert JSON-like text to JSON to basically make sure it is that exact format. And what's interesting is actually, again, we are converting it to JSON just to convert it back to a text. But the reason that we need to convert it to JSON is because we want to be able to use it in a for each loop, and we need the array values to be able to do that. So this breaks it all apart. And then we're coming down to creating that particular or a result for every single one of our sales receipts files. Because again, we don't want to pass them all to make.com at one time, or it would just make all of these particular values on one single sales receipt. We don't want that. We want them to all be unique sales receipts for each individual month so that we can track our MRR. So what's happening here is we're taking this JSON that we just created, and we are making a looping function, which you can do right up here in Relevance AI. So you can make this says disable the for each. I have it listed here. Obviously, we have the for each loop going on, but what it's going to do, it's going to take these values that it came from this step, which we see right here. We see the JSON sales receipts all values, JSON sales receipts all values output, and we want all of the individual items for that. So if we come back up here, what does it mean by an item? Here's an item. Here's an item. So it'll obviously be able to pick up on that and create it appropriately. So it's going to loop through every single one of those and create an individual result. And each one of those results, we then pass through our API step here so that it can then create a sales receipt for each one of those. So, and again, that's in make.com. So we're going to jump over to make.com and we'll go look at that step. So make.com and create QuickBooks sales receipts. So this here, you can ignore what's down here. This was just some other stuff I was testing at one point in time. But we've got our webhook, and then we come in and you can see, obviously, we've got that process that we went through. And then we also passed customer ID and the test email as well in that API step. So we are taking all of this and breaking that apart. And that's going to connect to this product array. Again, really nice that make.com has the data structure already that QuickBooks needs to create line items. So this was done automatically for me. You basically just go in and you select it, and you can select create a sales receipt for your type. And then all you're doing is mapping all of the different quantities that you have here. very easy. They make it super easy to do this. So as long as you can get the format into make.com, you can just go in and select the values that you want to be able to bring them together and create a sales receipt. So we do the same thing with the sales date, and we won't go through the details on some of these. We do the same thing with our sales receipt number. And then lastly, we come over here to our QuickBooks value and we pass that array that we had for the lines. And some of this stuff is just what we use by default, so I don't need to pass something. Clearing account is exactly what we want. We've got our sales receipt number that we calculated. We've got the sales receipt date that our agent passed through. We've got the email from the get QuickBooks customer information from step 1 of this whole process that we've been talking through. So all of that comes together and creates a sales receipt. So now we're going to jump back to Relevance AI and remember that we had a problem in this, which I probably should have double checked before we started, but we're going to see if our agent was able to do their task even without me fixing that particular issue. So remember I had put this in here where it says create the sales receipts here, or sorry, we prompted them with create the sales receipt and the order. So if I click here, we'll see what it came up with. And here is our invoice in QuickBooks.com. We've got our net 30, which is what we want. And we've got the information that we were expecting to see. So if we come back, let's click on one of the sales receipts. And right here, you can see that the sales receipt was created. So they did exactly what we wanted it to do, which is great, even though I had a little bit of a typo in that previous prompt. So you can see agents know how to work with things if you give them enough context to work around. They can problem solve, they can go around things. It's actually kind of nice to have that in the example here. Agents are super powerful, and getting them to be able to conquer simple tasks like this is really allowing us to spend time on the things that are really value added, as opposed to having to go back through and spend hours and hours and hours doing double entry of things from this system over here. Now, all of this, again, could be done with a programmer or a developer to do it all, but not all of us have that skill set. I am not a developer. I don't have those skill sets myself. I was just able to use some of these no-code tools and put them together in a way that an agent knew how to utilize them to accomplish a task. So hope to have a lot more of these videos coming in the future, but just wanted to share what we've been working on. So if you got any questions, let me know. It was super fun working on this project. Hopefully more to come. Thanks a lot. So I had some quick feedback when I showed a couple folks this video, and basically when I clicked on the particular invoices and sales receipts, I didn't scroll down. Full transparency, that was just so that I wasn't exposing actual customer information. The order I did use was a real customer order. So there would have been customer sensitive information inside of that. So I am now going to rerun this same thing, and we can click on them and we will edit the video appropriately to make sure that none of that is exposed, but we can still see the true output. So we are going to paste our same prompt from before, and we're going to let this run. And I am going to pause the video for just a few minutes while our agent is working, because it might take a couple minutes, and we will pick back up in just a second. All right, and we're back. We can see that our agent has finished their steps. We click in here. They got the customer info, they created the invoice, and they created sales receipts, and we can see those all down here. I'm not a master video editor here, but we're going to go ahead and pause this so I can see if I can edit out the sensitive information just right here. So give me just a second. We're going to click on the invoice first and let that load. All right, so now that I've got this loaded in here, you can see that the invoice was created. And same terms as before, we can scroll down and we can see all of the different line items that were created automatically by our agent. And now we're going to jump back over here. We're going to do the same thing for our sales receipt. So if we come on in here and click and let this guy load, and we'll try to edit out some of that customer information as well. All right, so we got that information edited out again. And as we scroll down here, we can see we've got our setup here. We've got a negative number and a positive number. This is just the format that we are using to record our MRR appropriately. So we can see that this was created. And if we go back, all of these individual sales receipts were created, all have a similar amount of information. And depending on how many licenses they were purchasing at that point in time, that tells us what our MRR for the month is. So this automatically created it for us. So hopefully this helps and gives a little bit more of a taste of what the agent actually created, and then also keeps our customer information safe. Thanks.